Good morning, good evening to you, beautiful friends, wherever you are in the world. Grand Rising. It's been a minute, right? I haven't sat down and unpacked a longer video in a minute, and I thought I would. It's time. Just been living life, doing some things. I'm actually kind of coming down from a very traumatic, first world problems. Let's take a moment because if you're here and you're watching this, I can't know your circumstances, be you displaced, be you mortgage paid off, what have you. But we are here when so many others are not, and that is a gift. It's a blessing, and we can continue to go forth and do so many things. It is very easy to feel very disempowered and disenfranchised, and that's kind of a place that I'm coming up from. But I don't even really want to get too deep into that, other than to say, quite literally, woke up to like a fraud alert, like identity theft and stuff, and I've worked on it and already kind of did reporting and things of that nature, and it's unfortunate. On the one hand, I understand times are hard. People feel like they do what they need to do. On the other hand, I can potentially get screwed over for, go look at my videos. I already do things, and I'm accountable, and I always want to be responsible for the things I do and how I show up. But that's one of those where, again, just, peopling. What do we do? Um, and it kind of got me on this tangent because I might just be too soft for this world. Now I need to start and be that soft-headed, soft-hearted, what have you. Agree, disagree, whatnot. I come on here and I relate because relating is relatable. In fact, you might be like, huh? But I've got such a beef with media and the way that we do things because we give away so much of our personal power relating to what's relatable as if this is like life. And it's a storytelling, it's a recreation and representation, and I understand that and I appreciate that. But in a lot of ways, it can also be like a distracted coping mechanism. Especially because anything represented. Gosh, I make up my own words sometimes. If you haven't already checked out videos, it has to go with the flow. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't want to necessarily like red pill anybody. But everything that we subscribe to and we give power to and we agree to, it quite literally only exists this way because we give it that power. Like, you're you, I'm me, and things are never the same to us no matter what. Like, my shirt's green, first of all, because of the lighting and what have you. You might not see that. It's like dark green, hunter green, as they call it. And again, just talks for how that is perceived by us on different days, depending on our emotional states. Just the brain, neuroscience is incredible. And I lost my train of thought, my tangent. Oh, my issues with media storytelling. Barbara Burr, I believe it's Barbara Burr, Bonnie Burr. She was an amazing psychologist who did a lot of study and theory, potentially, not even potentially, like it is in academia, which is very interesting because there are talks about how academia is rife with sociopathy and psychopathy. Again, everything. I am such a nerd. If it's not apparent, I love learning. I could talk about things all day long, and it's allowed me, I find, to be very, very resilient. I just explained to you guys, I just had to deal with, $100 catastrophe amongst so many other things. And trust me, I'm not happy. Not happy about it. Not delusional. Potentially in for a world of some chaos and what have you. I've had so many other scrapes, as have you, I'm sure. And they've been worse, and I'm not here to trauma dump. But I love learning. It's allowed me to build up resilience, mental fortitude, emotional fortitude. Sometimes, because of the way that current society and modernity is done, I probably look just nuts. Especially because it is very antisocial. In fact, things like insanity, antisocial personality disorder, just all of these things that essentially were once, labels that can be and often are used to identify someone as deviant. from societal norms and how it can just be stigmatizing, condemning, etc., perpetuating this whole propensity and this need of safety in numbers, what have you, conformity. And I haven't thought of a title for the video yet. Longest introduction ever, right? I guess. But you just go. You know, the bird isn't like, I've got to run, I've got to jump, fly. It does. It does what it needs to do. And it's very interesting, just being a big nerd, loving things, etc., trying to understand people. This is kind of my point of this video right now, especially. Because society has us in a state of constant stressors, just fight or flight, adrenal fatigue. We have to pay our bills, we have to eat, inflation, prices, people can't agree. And this is where, again, we need to kind of take a step back, because if our society was so progressive and fantastic, like, what are we doing? Why is everybody so angry, and why is everybody unable to reconcile, to kind of feel their feelings and hold space for multiple feelings? Like, that's a big one for me. It makes me sad. It makes me so sad, because as far as I'm concerned, every single person on the street, you watching this, whether I know you or not, like, we are so interesting. But we oftentimes like relate to things to relate, i.e. our fandoms and music lyrics and whatnot, you know, the water cooler talk. And somehow, I don't know, like, I was born in the 80s, so I've gotten to experience, like, I was talking to this with my partner, actually, and I don't want to be like, everybody's posers, but essentially, because I got to live through the 80s and have memories and got to kind of experience, like, that fashion and just even that energy, everything essentially recycled at that point, because then we started going back to recreating trends from prior times, and then we just continued to kind of go more backwards, if that makes sense. Like in the 80s, you might, or I will say like late 80s, early 90s, you might still rock like 60s or 70s trends, and so forth. It's very interesting, you know, we marvel and geek out over time travel, and yet somehow we do, to a certain extent, just when we love going to visit certain locales that have kept the energy alive, excuse me, because of the commitment to authenticity, if you will. Steel Magnolias, wonderful movie. I go on and on sometimes about how I don't necessarily care for media. I think it's the grandiosity, the decadence, the hoard, the waste. It's allowed for so many things, including all of the mass debt, this illusion. It has allowed us to take away so much from ourselves and just being able to sit with ourselves in our oddities, our eccentricities, to find our ability to tell our stories. Just all of it. And then we bleed our money out into it. I haven't actually found a celebrity in current times that is worth following. Princess Diana was fantastic. God rest her soul. You know, people often, in these earlier times, I guess, thought outside of themselves, of the bigger picture. And to a certain extent, that is the case, I guess. But then why are these billionaires that are trying to save the planet continuing to perpetuate this system? You know, why aren't they buying out lots for the displaced and, you know, getting them jobs in their company, etc.? Things are very complicated, as I said. We claim to be an incredibly progressive society, and yet so much of why we do what we do still comes from, like, greed and neuroses and unrest. How can it not be? I mean, first and foremost, any sort of agency believing themselves the power and authority to oversee is just wild. And it's very interesting treading those lines, heroes and villains, etc. Judge as ye shall be judged. Maybe that's already been the name of my video. Maybe I've already posted one under that blanket, umbrella, what have you. But just judge as you shall be judged. And at the end of the day, it is very clear that we are close to absolutely the brink of extinction. And one thing is for sure, I mean, look at the Ice Age, look at what have you. Earth is going to be fine, y'all. Like, Earth's going to be good. Earth's going to eliminate the threat. We have this fear of AI taking over. It's very interesting. We humanize everything. We humanize God as we know it. We humanize our monsters, i.e., why do aliens want to come to Earth and take over us and take our resources? Human history, because people have been doing that to each other for ages. And funnily, if I could go into colonization and what have you, because that's even a big part of it. I know I talked about Bonnie Beret, but that actually had to do with institutionalization, indoctrination of the indigenous, and how that's violent. Perpetually, essentially, way back when the first colonizer deemed the first native uncivilized and ungodly, because perhaps they saw God in touching when they ate. And they said it was savage and unclean, and yet, funnily enough, historically speaking, cultures like the Romani and indigenous cultures who understood practices of hygiene and cleanliness were actually doing fine. Just saying. Technically speaking, history, as it is perpetuated as we know it, has always been the narrative of the person who couldn't hack it, doing what they were doing, paints them as this big hero, going out, exploring, conquering, etc. And funnily enough, it's, again, even, well, if the natives were so great, why did they let people slaughter? Or why weren't they slaughtered? I mean, i.e., one of the hallmarkers and ramifications, like you had to meet this qualification to become war chief. Counting coup. It is so important to value the sanctity of life inherently. And if someone will not be a threat and an enemy to you, then what purpose does it serve to take them out? And it's something I've had to work with, because, you know, it's taken a lot of knowledge, learning, self-exploration. There are definitely people who, in having aligned with me, might be like, well, I got this side of her, blah, blah, blah. And I absolutely own my actions, so by all means, I include my email address. You think someone knows me, they try to tell you that I might be full of blah, 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 or what have you. First and foremost, ask how long it's been since we've aligned closely, because life. I'm an INFJ. We tend to evolve rapidly and quickly. I'm a nerd. I'm always kind of looking to incorporate the things that I learn to see how I'm doing them and then move forward, i.e. media. Not a Swiftie, not even a little bit, not a fan. And actually, funnily enough, a person, when I was helping another person, there was another person involved. Just random on the streets. It was a foggy day, and a poor gentleman had gotten turned around. And I remember seeing lights and thinking, you know, is this backwards? You know, what's going on? And then thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's probably turned around. This is going to be really dangerous. So I turned my car around. And this is not to toot my own horn, because again, own it. When being trespassed upon, etc. I'm definitely not, I always try to be mindful of the energy I'm putting out, but I do not just take what I find to be injustice, indifference, intolerance. I stand up for what I believe in, and I am always looking to do what I believe is right, and not just for myself or other people. And everyone's path is their own, but I will, as I continue this path, I do not expect others to necessarily advocate for me. If they do, that's fantastic, but that's part of the way I've given my personal power away. It's part of the reason I've unfortunately entertained and allowed myself to get hurt, is maybe perhaps seeking understanding, seeking, you know, acceptance from other people, not realizing it was because if perhaps someone could receive me well, then maybe I would seem a little less crazy, or any other time someone told me I was crazy because of how we disagreed, or, you know, all of the hurtful words and the projections and the weight of other people and their experience, probably misspeaking because of their anger and their experiences and their pain. It goes on and on and on. It's a spiral. And apparently my madness is that I can't help but see how it all connects, understand how we have to all distract from it lest it drive us mad, and yet somehow contain it all in the containiness. Maybe. I mean, for all I know, I could absolutely literally be having some kind of what psychology would try to eventually deem a psychotic break, because it doesn't support a lot of the current narratives, and I could literally be like, I think about that a lot, actually, funnily enough, the Bible, and how spirit oftentimes looks a lot like the mental health disorders that society has. And again, institutionalization. So much of what we deem icky, bad, negative, what have you, is still because it's evoking something in us that is causing us to have to exercise control over ourselves, and it's triggering us, and we don't even know it, and we don't want to, and it's easier to make it about the other person, and I'm just gonna go over here because everything's easier. Ugh. And this is, again, something I had to sit with because I'm incredibly touchy and sensitive. I mean, sound, smells, hypersensitivity on so many levels. And then now just even what I've unpacked and how I observe the world, right? Um, so back to, just getting this gentleman turned around. So this is one of those things where I talk about. I'm in the Midwest, and I will say that both of these people are of British colonial ancestry. Because I do want to unpack some potentially weirdness that might be considered kindness that I don't even think was done with ill intent, but it is kind of strange. And we have hard times, so I get it, because it's like things are hard, the world seems difficult, so it's lovely to engage with, again, like-mindedness until it's not. And this will all come back to Taylor Swift, by the way, in case you're wondering. Stay tuned. So we get, long story short, it was a very elderly gentleman, a gentleman who probably should not have been driving. And fortunately, the result was that he decided to, after talking to his family and praying on it, he decided that he was going to surrender his keys. And that's fantastic. For my birthday a while back, I ended up taking some vacation afterwards. And it was funny because I didn't have plans. I thought I might go on a trip, I might do something, and I just, it ended up, I had some issues with my car. It was karma, and I had to do some healing. So I had to stay exactly where I was meant to, and multiple things happened. And I was coming back from the gym, and so then, this car's turned around, and I go to turn around. So this poor old man, the other person involved had to go to work, and that was fine. But I was like, if you don't mind. And so I follow this man home, and we get him home, and we have coffee, and we just unpack a bit, and it's lovely. And he asks me for my contact information. And, again, it's on us. And I joke that I might have antisocial personality disorder. That is not the case. It is just a pattern of humans. I have a history of needing to go incredibly slow in aligning and attaching, in connection. Because it is very easy for people to see this understanding levity side of me. But then again, I'm human. I'm triggered sometimes. I have my own things. And if perhaps all of this acute intelligence is triggered and angry, and did you consider that your actions were yada yada, and have you blah blah blah, and you just completely trespassed upon my boundary? And some people could say that's a and what about So if you're familiar with the show, oh gosh, I want to say Three Body Problem, but it's really not. Squid Games. A lot of people familiar with Squid Games. I think of like red light, green light, in movement. When I am not in my best, and if I am not given space, if I'm forced, because I don't like confrontation, though I don't believe that we should avoid anything, because, it allows us the opportunity to really find equilibrium, to really be true, be authentic. Because again, it's always about kind of, not necessarily going full claw, maybe shaping our claws a little bit. But so I followed him home, we had coffee, etc. He asked for my phone number, and I give it to him. Again, just, it's good to slowly, to not rush anything unless you have to, man. And I have an Aries Mars and an Aries Venus while an Aquarius Sun, so impulsivity issues, up the yin yang. And it's funny because when people, it's hard. I think I want to help people a lot, not going too sideways, especially because, that's judgment, right? Like I'm judging that it's bad, or I'm projecting my own struggles with particular issues. So then I want to potentially offer advice because I don't want someone to have to learn the lesson so expensive, so to speak. Like everyone's always like, well, I'm going to have to learn for myself. Yes, this is true. But if you really, truly could try to empathize and put yourself in another's shoes, might save you from having to learn it so costly, so much trauma, damage, etc. But anywho, coffee with the elderly gentleman. We had a wonderful conversation. We exchanged phone numbers. He gave my phone number to the other person. And she reached out to me. And I don't know if it's because like I'm an SA survivor or what have you, boundaries, like there are so many things. It's also, again, I mentioned their ethnicity because it's kind of like, is this weirdly low-key racism? Like, why are you just giving people's phone numbers out? Like, I guess, and more importantly, luckily, I'm a safe person.
What if I were a psychopath? Like, what? What? We're human beings. We're freaking strange. Maybe I'm strange because that is strange to me. But I try to move forward in love, and again, this bird trusts her wings, so I'm gonna protect myself either way. I don't need to feel incredibly threatened, even though I was kind of like, what the hell? It's a fight of my little antennae were tingling a bit, like, this is kind of weird, but okay. So I start talking to this woman, and she's just very kind, and it is about just how the world is hard, and she just starts sharing so much with me, just telling me about some of her struggles, her issues, just and it's lovely and it's beautiful and what have you. But this is why I talk about not necessarily wanting to trauma dump. Like, whoa, we talked for like 15 minutes doing something to help somebody. And cool, you need love, you need to be heard. We again, I absolutely, it just substantiates my beliefs that we are not necessarily knowing how to people. Um, so we kind of chat, we go back and forth a bit, and then we end up going to meet for coffee. And I have talked about this in a previous video. Certain topics have come up, and one of them included Taylor Swift, just as a feminist, what have you. So I'm a mother, I'm a feminist. She's walking her path, good on her. She makes lots of money. For me, it's about what she's not doing with that money. For me, it's about the fact that while I will absolutely always advocate for the right for her to do what she does, how she does it, I wouldn't want, if my daughter were on her bad side, the little Swifty lynch mobs. If my son broke her heart, I wouldn't want, the little internet lynch mob. And that's why I get more selective. It's not just her. Don't get me started. Funnily enough, Rivers Cuomo, one of his videos trolled on, the singer of Weezer, trolled on. I fully own I can be observed as a troll. I'm not trying to be. Norfin troll, if you remember. The guys with the whacked out hair and the little gems in their bellies. Because it's loving. But they have a song called El Scorcho. And one of the lyrics is talking about how a girl turns him down, saying she didn't hear of a band. And so he goes and reads her diary, which, when we look at things like, essay and violation, is cringe. I loved Weezer. I followed Weezer around 4 states when I was a teenager, just to be clear. I used to love Taylor Swift. Ooh, like what you made me do. Like, pettiness. I don't want to support those things. I can't help it. And that's where, again, like, it's very interesting. Because people will be like, well, you are these ways and blah, blah, blah. I can't help it. I'm human. Someone's going to perceive me this way, sure. But am I? If I'm always working to not be, if, again, I mentioned in another video once someone who had really chosen to disconnect with me, saying I wasn't very generous and didn't give gifts in a lot of ways, who was a family member, and sometimes I didn't give gifts if maybe I wasn't always fiscally on my feet. Not to be poor pity victim mentality, anything, but just for a scope of range, it is true. Did not always give this family member gifts. What were my flippant circumstances? And what is your relation to me? What's with the weird expectant? Anywho, I'm not sure. You guys aren't my therapists, and no offense, therapy is an interesting one because I've known some therapists. And who watches The Watchmen? Just saying. So I had an opportunity, and I wanted to send this person a gift, just to be like, hey, I felt like you didn't necessarily feel appreciated in gifts, and it was a gift that probably would have triggered them a bit. And plus, they specifically had mentioned that they chose to put space between us, so I didn't. And it's about being able to say, I get it, I understand how, and really sitting with that, like, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, so much, I didn't even realize how defensive I would be in certain ways. And people be like, sorry, I can talk so fast sometimes, can't I? When people would be like, well, you're being petty. No, I'm not, because blah, 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 and needing to defend, not even realizing that I was, like, denying them their right, because I didn't want to take it, or because they were screaming at me, or what have you. And I shouldn't have to take them screaming at me, but I can definitely advocate differently. I can say, look, I don't care for you, this energy. You might not see it, what have you. Please try to calm yourself down. I want to hear you. I want to understand. And unfortunately, it's taken a lot of slip-ups and a lot of, failed connections to get to that. But back to story time. So I had coffee with this person, and I mentioned the Taylor Swiftie stuff. amongst because but I do one more note before I go back. Sorry, I misspoke and I beg your pardon. God, I'm a filthy liar. No, I'm going to keep going, so I'm not a filthy liar because choices. I will not excuse this. So then we also talk about, as I mentioned in other videos, I've talked about this Pioneer Day festival that I have. I'm in the Midwest, and I understand it's much like the battles of the South and the glorious representation um, of the South and the Northern aggression and etc. But I have this fantastic French dress. It is beautiful. It looks calfskin. And I've actually actively thought about, because technically speaking, and I live in a town that it's interesting. Sometimes they acknowledge the native name, the indigenous name, and sometimes they don't. They go with the colonized name. And I just find it incredibly disrespectful, whether they want to take a moment or not, that they don't have more native representation regardless. But second, if they did, like clearly, I'd be possibly tied to a tree in the best of circumstances. In the best of circumstances, things were cooperative. Somebody let me raise their children. Maybe somebody married me, wink, wink, and now I have children and I'm assimilated into the community. So I have this fabulous French dress, and I have often thought about going braless. And I meant this is important because, again, accurate representation, since they all want to dress up, etc. And literally having, some white dude drag me around with my mouth gagged or tie me to a tree, etc. And as kind of protest, shock, awe, or whatever, I get it. It could, again, be seen as trolling. But I'm really not trying to. I'm just trying to lovingly tell these people without being like, yo, what the hell? Fucked up people. Without actually making a judgment. Trying to kind of lovingly remind them, like, there's oppression involved in this. And it's just, we turn a blind eye. It's uncomfortable. It's not comfortable for me either. Trust me. And it's especially uncomfortable when, for whatever reason, and it's my own work that I'm dealing with, but when I happen to see a lot of Midwestern people of British colonial descent greet more Midwestern people of British colonial descent in greeting, potentially not even acknowledge me at first when I walk into buildings. And I have to wonder, is this the new face of racism? Do do I look incredibly mean? And it's funny because it's not like I'm necessarily seeking engagement, but it's just strange when, you're talking to everybody else, or, when you're asking every other patron, did you find what you're looking for? Yeah, what, you having a good weekend? Blah, blah, did you find everything all right? Good. On to, do I stake? Judge as ye shall be judged. And so I guess I've always sought understanding, and that can be triggering. But I tried to have this talk. And then, so I understand. And I kind of unpacked my Swift thing. I went sideways on the Rivers Cuomo. I didn't go sideways. I chose to be a person of dignity and go back to my story. So back to the Rivers Cuomo thing. I saw a video of this, and he's like, I'm Rivers Cuomo, blah, blah, blah. And again, millions of dollars, blah, 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 so cool, whatever. He used to idolize the guy. I now apologize to myself so greatly for so many of the things that I subscribe to, and how it gave away my authority, my power, and really, without realizing it, made me put myself into these little boxes, i.e., the agreeable, sweet girl, because if I'm not, then I'm not feminine, right? I'm not a good woman if I don't actually understand or I disagree, but yet I mask it to make you feel better. No, I'm not helping me. I'm not helping you. Like, I'm not helping you think better. I'm not helping you emotionally regulate. I'm not necessarily doing the same. It's spirals of distortion as I see it. So just being me, I made a little comment, just kind of like, yeah, Rivers. So I'm curious, because he was talking about his thoughts, and I was like, I'm curious as to now, upon reflection, if you were a father to daughters, and I don't know because I don't give into that, he might be. How would you feel? How would you feel if some dude treated your daughters that way? Of course, nothing. And again, he's rich, he's duh, why is he gonna blah, 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 blah? Well, because I guarantee you, if it was fans lapping up his butthole, he'd probably take a moment. In fact, most of the time, that's usually how it works, right? So how honorable, trustworthy, how are these people? Why are we idolizing them, etc.? So I kind of unpack this with her because you have to remember, she sought me out. She's saying she wants to be friends, yada yada. And I am literally like, I don't necessarily like, I don't. I love people, I engage people. It's a lot for me to consider someone a friend because, again, we have to be able to agree to disagree, just all sorts of things. And more importantly, I do not like weaponized ignorance, which we're about to unpack. I've really thought about this and think what you will. You can say I'm dismissive, what have you, because I want to own myself. She is in her message. I want to go to this festival and enjoy a dumpling. A dumpling is a dumpling. I don't need to die on every hill. Stop the message. I don't need to hear anymore. And it is a case of projection. I'm not being open-minded. I don't need to hear more because I've already seen demonstration of how close-minded she is. I.e., dying on what hill, lady? Because yes, massa, because I didn't just agree with you, Miss Ma'am, who wanted to come and be my friend. You want me, and you come to me, and I need to agree with your opinions? And I'm dying on this hill? Am I going around to Taylor Swift concerts? Am I literally asking people if they like Taylor Swift to tell them they're demons and they need baptism? No, because it's not that deep, though I care very much. But it's a great discernment for how together people are. And lady, aren't you like 55 years old? I hope Taylor shows up for you in ways that our potential friendship never would have, the years would have you. But a la James Baldwin, even, I can agree with you, but if your beliefs contribute to my oppression, no, we can't necessarily be friends. Because it's not just a dumpling. There is a very real truth that you are choosing to ignore because it makes you uncomfortable. Imagine how uncomfortable I am all of the time in a world that doesn't even acknowledge the very real truth and reality of what was done to so many of my people. I am, several generations American, but and actually, funnily enough, didn't realize that I had Chinese ancestry, but finding out that I had Chinese ancestry. So, amongst other ethnicities. But in finding that out, but even just the way that for the California Gold Rush, they treated the Chinese, just, it's wild to me. And I own it. Maybe I'm closed minded, but I sent her a message. I said, it's been lovely to align with you. And I love that people get to people in all sorts of ways. No, we don't need to be friends and we don't need to keep talking. If we happen to see each other on the streets, fantastic. Let's catch up, say hi, share a moment. It's beautiful. We don't really need anything more. And it's great to disagree. It's not because we disagree. We're just different people and we see things differently and we do things differently. Oh, she even mentioned good and bad and scales of like drug users. And that's one that really ticks me off too. There have been plenty of people in my life that have battled with addiction. And technically speaking, as far as I'm concerned, we're all addicted to certain things. Gosh, I'm addicted to hiking. I love going out. I'm addicted to caffeine, amongst other things, just to be clear. It's how we are navigating and applying our energies, if that makes sense. But and I mentioned that. I said it's funny that you mentioned like bad people in regards to like drug users and don't realize that, caffeine's a drug. That people go and get Z packs when they have a cold. Technically speaking, that's kind of an addiction. Okay, you're lazy and you don't want to also just let your body heal. You're addicted to playing God, to speeding up the process. I understand that you have to function, but again, I'm a bit more of a naturopath. So it's just differences. Judge as ye shall be judged. And I think that's very painful for me because I don't have the right to judge anybody and I don't judge anybody, but I'm a critical thinker. I want to understand. And then when we go deeper into the understanding, perhaps it can become uncomfortable when people get to realize different facets about their behaviors and their actions and their choices. And it highlights and demonstrates that perhaps they don't think about what they're doing and why. I am getting close to wrapping this up, but lastly, it was funny because on the YouTubes, I had a comment stream about an overthinking video, and it's just one of those, the blind leading the blind. I think a lot, but it's kind of in that way that deep thinkers, people want to oppress that which they perhaps don't reconcile, and have it reconciled, and that's okay. But perhaps we all just need to take some deep breaths. Because when is one thing ever one thing anyway? And of course, it's easy to be like, I'm not smart, I'm not this, I'm not that. You are. You are so smart. You are so smart that because you're burnt out, you are using all of your energy to sort of cleave to this one way of thinking because you think that it's helping you, when actually, if you just breathe, if you use that adrenaline, that fight or flight, and then you go different ways, you get stronger each time. And you don't have to believe me. In fact, I hope you don't. I hope you question it, and I hope you try it for yourselves so that you can see the benefit. And I hope you fail, and I hope you feel better. Because isn't that kind of what you've been doing in life anyway? You're here. And I'm not saying you're a failure at life, to be clear. I'm saying that we don't always get everything one shot, one kill. And if we do, then we don't actually learn as much. Think about it. How many times have you grasped something quickly and then come to know so much more? Unfortunately, in arrogance and ego, I find for myself more often than not. But, and sometimes in better ways than not. But I just wanted to unpack, and I wanted to sit and share some things with you because life be life, and judge as ye shall be judged. And just try to keep in mind, not everybody looks and thinks like you do. I do. That's why I try to remove concepts like good, bad, etc. Or if I can't help but pepper them in, good or bad for me, as I see it, just levity, reminding myself that I experience life as me. There's no true agreement anyway, because you're you. We can't agree. If it resonates because it feels true. It feels right. But right and left, really just emotional, logical. So much, right? And you have infinite possibility. You can learn new hobbies, you can learn new things, you can go for a hike, you can go get a drink. I just wanted, like I said, we relate as it's relatable, and it's definitely been a minute, and I just wanted to share. And I guess more importantly, it's how we get to understand people more. I don't necessarily see a lot of people owning it. It ain't gonna hurt me. It ain't necessarily gonna hurt you. I apologize if you feel triggered by this. Questions, comments, concerns. I will never ask you to like, subscribe, or share. In fact, that is one of those weird manipulative, you know, tactics. If you are so inclined, if you think this can help people, if you think it has meaning, if it has value, by all means, you do. Why do what I do? You can do even greater. But thank you for being here with me in this moment and for being alive. And I don't have to know you. I don't have to agree with your principles. I probably don't agree with a lot of them. Don't know that we would align other than here and there. Maybe sing a song together, dance a dance. But why can't we love each other? I love you. I want you to live your best life. I want you to feel healthy and hale, genuinely unrocked, not doing something because other people keep telling you this is what's what, and yada yada. And you just naturally come to it organically and independently. Whatever that may be. You'll get it. You're going to get to where you're going because you're getting there. I love you. And just keep on keeping on because you're exactly where you're meant to be. And we, with every choice, every action, everything that we are doing, we're changing the world.